Good morning, every one of you. Hope you can hear me. Before I begin, I would like to confirm if you can hear me and view the presentation. Please confirm it via chat. Thank you for your confirmation. This is Raja on behalf of ManageEngine. This is going to be a 45-minute session where we will be exploring more about the updates from ManageEngine with reference to Patch Tuesday and third party. Okay, so here is a quick agenda for our 45-minute session. As always, we are going to begin with a breakdown on Microsoft's Patch Tuesday updates. We will also hit through critical third-party applications, and we will move on to analyze the impacts and effects on missing these critical patches. At the end of the session, we would also explore ways on how to secure your network from these vulnerabilities. Okay, great. So anytime during this presentation, if you have any questions, if you feel like asking me any questions, you can feel free to stop me. You know what? You can question me in chat. I have an expert panel who is right next to me who can answer your questions then and there. All right? Okay. Hope I'm audible enough. I'm just getting it on the fly. All right? Here we go. So, what is in the limelight? I'm sure these three, phrases that you could see here are something very familiar for most of you. Broken Wi-Fi, that one particular phrase, of course, for sure. All these three items that I've listed here have topped the list in terms of vulnerabilities or in terms of alerts since October and November 2017. Yes, there was an issue called key reinstallation attack, which in fact troubled a lot of users. That was also termed as broken Wi-Fi issue. Users who were connecting to Wi-Fi using WPA or WPA2 connectivity, there was a vulnerability which was disclosed, and of course, it was exploited to the core. Which means, even if, be it your Mac or Windows or Linux, any operating system, even if your computer is up to date, in case your network devices are not up to date, there is a missing patch, critical patch, any user can actually sneak through your business critical data or your private data. So this is more like a safety announcement that I would like to disclose it for the public. In case if you walk up to any shopping mall or be it any public Wi-Fi, you access your device from any public Wi-Fi. Okay, it's not recommended for you to access any financial websites or do any kind of financial transactions or share your confidential data or business related data using the Wi-Fi from a public source, since there are still a lot of Wi-Fi devices which are not up to date. So that is the first one. And second one is about around 34,000 phishing mails bombarding a mail server. Imagine 34,000. Okay, it's more than 1,000 mails every single day. Phishing mails were bombarded every single day, targeting users. So this again gives you a more clarity on what kind of attacks and what kind of vulnerability we are exposed into. Finally comes one of the greatest statement that I recently read. Google's bug tracking database, bug tracking tool had a bug. So there is no exception. What does all these signify? It really urges us to ensure that we always stay on top of vulnerabilities. It signifies the real need for keeping all our servers as well as your workstations up to date. So let's just move on to more numbers. 304. 304 is the number of patches that are released and supported by Desktop Central since the previous Patch Tuesday till November Patch Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to break it down further. So we have it as 6, 99, 43, 55, and 6 again. Few of you might be wondering, why do we have bulletins? Of course, Microsoft has stopped releasing bulletins However, just for our customers' convenience, we have split it. We have categorized it as bulletins for you to experience it better. And here is a different dimension to it. We have got the number of, earlier we saw the number of patches which were released, and here the patches are grouped based on the type of attacks, based on the impacts that is left behind. I could list few of them here. One is defense in depth, followed by denial of service, elevation of privilege, information disclosure, and that is a huge list on top. Ranking first, remote code execution. At last, security feature bypass. So these are the common impacts that the above listed, the previous numbers, 304. These are the impacts that these 304 patches would land us on in case we are not up to date. Okay, so we are moving out to patches in terms of severity. So we are trying to understand it probably in various dimensions, trying to see how significant these patches are. I've got close to 41% of the patches which are critical, and 41% again as important, and of course a meager number is low and moderate. However, I would recommend, even if it's going to be 1% of low base severity, I would still recommend you to update all the patches. We need to ensure that every computer, every business critical server is patched up to date. So let us try examining these patches in terms of applications, because this is really how we are going to look into. We might not know what the 304 represents, but these are the applications which we use in our day-to-day business. So I've got a huge list here again. Okay, and let's look at it. For more clarity, let's look at it this way. I can give you Microsoft Office, Microsoft Windows. We've got Edge, Internet Explorer, .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, followed by Adobe Flash. So this is going to be a huge list. When I say Microsoft Windows, there are a lot of operating system related patches into Microsoft Windows. We've got Microsoft Office, browsers like Edge, Internet Explorer, .NET Core, ASP.NET. I'm sure most of you should be familiar where we use applications like ASP.NET into a lot of our in-house programs. We craft a lot of websites based on .NET. So ASP.NET is there into the picture, followed by Adobe Flash Player. So I'm going to pick out each application individually, and we are going to discuss more about it, a bit in detail. To start with, Microsoft Office. So the severities that I could, rate it through across is going to be important, moderate, and low. So these are the three different severities, and the impacts that I could imagine are probably the impacts that we could actually get through are defense in depth, elevation of privilege, remote code execution, followed by security feature bypass. All right. So here is a list of components which are affected. What does these components refer to? There are several components. Probably I cannot put them all here on a sheet of paper or a single slide for you. However, I've just handpicked few of them. I've just cherry picked few of them, which you could probably associate into your day-to-day usage. So the primary component is memory. Objects in memory is being compromised. Defense in depth. So that becomes a security glitch. Enforcement of macro settings on Excels, and user session authentication. So you got a list of items which you can probably imagine what would be the possible exploits. So here we see the probability, or probably the assessment that we could derive out of these vulnerabilities are. The first thing is more about memory handling. As you are quite aware, most of you should be aware, every data that is stored on an application requires a specific space for storage. So there are cases where the data that you'd have to store probably might actually be insufficient. In such cases, they start storing the data in a buffer, which could be a cache memory or probably a cookie or a temporary memory. So this stack buffer overflow is the first entry point for data corruption to come into picture. So when the excess of data or probably a data is stored temporarily on a stack for an interim purpose, that's exactly wherein the vulnerability comes into picture. An attacker can actually mishandle the whole memory objects. Certain arbitrary codes can be executed, which means anything could happen. That could actually, end up where a user can gain privilege. I mean, an attacker can gain privilege of the lockdown user. Assume a lockdown user is an administrator, or the lockdown user has administrative privilege. In such cases, an attacker can gain complete access, administrative access over the particular network. So when an attacker or an intruder gains administrative privilege, there is nothing more that I need to explain you. Okay, so creating multiple accounts, deleting user accounts, manipulating data, this is unimaginable stuff that could an attacker can cause to your network. So it doesn't end there. It also you know leads out to cross-site scripting attacks, and the list of vulnerabilities are endless. Now we'll move on to the next one. Here comes Microsoft's Windows. As I said, there are a lot of operating systems at the back end. So we're going to look into the list of impacts like denial of service, elevation of privilege, information disclosure, security feature bypass. A few of them which probably are repeated over and over again. These are the components which are compromised, embedded fonts which are handled. So here comes a font engine corruption and Windows GDA component failure. Again, you've got some problem in handling objects in the memory, device guard failure. So these are too many things that we cannot take it for granted. Here are the list of CVEs and the possible exploit assessment. So an attacker can easily gain access to the user system. Attacker can cause remote denial of service to a specific system. So the second case is where the attacker might not even gain access to the machine. He can remotely invoke certain operations like denial of service. The third one is about device guards validation issues, which means a malicious software can actually be tricked down. A malicious software can actually be projected as though it is non-malicious. It's a proper authenticated trusted file, because device guard usually works based on the signature. So when your device guard is compromised, the signatures can be encrypted, and of course this might officially invite malicious content into your website or your server or your network. Okay, so the last one is going to be attacker can read data from embedded open type font engine. So your font engine is compromised, the data that is stored is absolutely compromised. So what are we doing here? We are looking into more of vulnerabilities, more of compromise. So let's look at it. We have a few more to look into before we find out what could be the possible solution and have to overcome these. So here it is about Microsoft Edge, the browsers. We have severities from critical, important, moderate, and low. And of course, we have a list of impacts that's listed here, like information disclosure, remote code execution, security feature bypass, and here are the list of components starting from script engine, again objects in memory, and we have got a lot of problems like your Microsoft Edge, your browser, content security policy violation, cross origin resource sharing. This is something that you'll have to watch out when you have problems in your browser. When you say CORS, I can give you one quick example probably for the people who are attending it for the first time, who are a part of this session for the first time. Assume you run an in-house application, or probably an application which is hosted on your server, and you've got few components which needs to be shared across multiple domains. Let's take a very simple example. Assume you have a website where you'll have to run few scripts, and those scripts are rendered from multiple domains. So this is one classic example where a cross origin resource sharing takes place. So if that is compromised, I'm sure a lot of data leak starts there. And finally, we move out to Microsoft Edge cross origin request. So handling requests is again compromised here. So list of CVEs, that's a huge number, a very huge list. Possible list here. Attacker can exploit users' computer or the data, install programs, view, change, or delete the information. Again, this depends on the user's privilege. If it's been an administrative user, of course, your complete network or the complete, the mission is at risk. Even the attacker can host a specially crafted website, execute arbitrary codes. I'm sure the options are endless. I don't have a necessity, to explain more. I'm sure by now you should be aware of the consequences. Now, another browser, Microsoft's Internet Explorer. I feel we are hitting more into the negative aspects, more about vulnerabilities, more about the possible impacts, exploits. Enough. Let me give you a quick break. You got some questions to ask me? Please post them in chat. I have a team who can handle it right away. And of course, I'm just going to make it real quick. So I'll just move on a little faster. And of course, we'll also explore the ways on how to handle these situations in the later part of the session. All right. So here we go with Internet Explorer. We've got the updates categorized as critical, important, moderate, and low, and the possible impact, information disclosure, remote code execution. And now we're going to look into the components which are compromised. Again, objects in memory, page content handling, and script engine memory failure. A list of CVEs to follow. So an intruder can trick the user to visit a fake website, and all the information that is hosted on a website can be transmitted or redirected to a malicious web page or a website itself, at the end of which arbitrary codes can be executed, which again invites a lot more trouble. Here we go with Microsoft's NetCore. The impact is denial of service, and let's see what it does. So here an attacker can remotely inject specially crafted certificates to .NET Core, which means a specially crafted certificate can either gain access or restrict access to authentic users. So authenticated users can be denied service or vice versa. An unauthenticated user can actually gain service in such cases. So here we go with ASP.NET. We've got the severity rated by Microsoft as important and moderate. The possible impacts are denial of service, elevation of privilege, information disclosure, and these are the components and the CVEs. Now we'll move on to the exploit assessment. So we have CORS attack, which I described a few minutes ago, which is about your cross origin resource sharing. I gave you an example of how an in-house application which is hosted across multiple domains, which is shared by multiple domains, might land up at risk. So that is one real-time use case, and it doesn't end there. Intruders can also, redirect users or their request to malicious websites, which might cause leak in data, which might again, you know, hack authentication token or more. Adobe Flash Player comes as a third party here, which is rated critical from, you know, critical in terms of the latest release. The possible impact is remote code execution. The affected components, it is out of bounds read. So what happens when this is compromised? Malicious native code execution, compromising data on affected machine. So it is more about data privacy and securing the data. Okay, so these are the list of applications that we saw related to Microsoft and third party. Here we could find a huge list of security based Office updates. I'm not going to run through each one of them. I'm sure this is not going to help you into our day-to-day business. So we will move out to the next phase of it. So here is a list of non-security updates, a huge list of third-party for Windows, Mac related updates, and now here comes the interesting part of the session. So with all these data that we have witnessed so far, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think you're going to secure your network? Shouldn't this be the first question to be discussed? Yes, I think so. So how do you secure a network? It's pretty simple. Securing securing against vulnerabilities, that is patching all your computers, all your servers, is pretty complex. Why is it complex? The very reason is because every enterprise every enterprise runs on multiple operating system, be it Windows, Mac, Linux. Of course, almost you have all the three major operating systems in any enterprise today in business. So you'll have to patch various operating systems. Is that all? Not just that. You have a huge list of third party applications. And these third party applications are unique for Windows. You have a separate list for Mac, and of course, another huge list for Linux. So, a single tool, you'll have to handle the whole process, which means you'll have to automate everything right from detection of missing patches till deployment of missing patches. So you'll have to take care of patching Windows, Mac, Linux, and third party applications. So patching all the operating systems and third party application from a single tool, and on top of everything, doing it regularly, doing it automatically, is the real challenge that bothers every system administrator. So how are we going to handle the situation right now? Leave it to us. Leave it to us. Okay. So I'm going to take you to the product. I'm going to throw up a few more real-time business scenarios. I had few customers who personally wrote back to me, who wanted to know more about the product and who wanted to, explore few real-time use cases which could help them. So I've picked the questions that the customers have raised me even before the session, and I've compiled them with the presentation. And I believe those customers who asked me are also part of this session. Probably they are listening to me right now. So even before we get into this, I'm going to take you to the product and I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough on how are we going to handle this situation. So we were discussing about automating everything. When I say everything, it includes right from detection of missing patches till deployment of missing patches. Okay, so let's take a quick walkthrough from the Desktop Central's product console. So for the users who are viewing it for the first time, this is ManageEngine's Desktop Central, an integrated desktop and mobile device management software. So you can do a lot of operations, not just patch management, you have a lot more, but let me stop myself right with patch management right here. Okay, I'm going to click on patch management tab. So this is the patch management dashboard that you could see, list of available patches, missing patches, patches which are installed, and new patches. This is something very important and very significant for every IT administrator. System health summary. So I've got a list of 170 applications, out of which 119 are highly vulnerable, 7 are vulnerable, 5 are healthy, and I don't have health status for few of them. So isn't it quite alarming when I say 170 machines and 119 are vulnerable? Should you be wondering that I have never patched my computers? Absolutely not. This is exactly how every network appears after a Patch Tuesday update, which means every week, every month, every single day, there are a lot of new patches, which are released by various vendors. So in case you take some pain to, scan your computers periodically, this would be the number which could be displayed more often than not. Okay, so what are we going to do right here? I'm simply going to create an automated patch deployment task. Automated task, probably if you are an evaluator, if you're not using desktop central, if this is going to be the first time that you're looking into this product, I can guarantee you in the next 5 minutes, by the time I complete this particular scenario, you would have completed all your patch managing challenges for your complete network. I'm not trying to exaggerate here. 5 minutes from now, I can see to it that your basic patch management challenges for your complete network is taken care of forever. Right? Mark my words. Here we go. We're going to choose automate patch deployment task, and I'm going to create a separate task for Windows. You can choose it based on your own operating system. I've chosen Windows here, and I'm going to choose an option to scan the computers, download the missing patches, okay, and deploy the approved patches to the appropriate computers. I'm going to select the patches based on severities and applications. So what do we do here? Should we exclude unrated patches, low patches, moderate? No, I would definitely not recommend you doing it. Please do not take them for granted. Ensure that all the patches are updated on every single server as well as your desktop. Okay. You can also choose service packs, roll-ups, optional updates, whatnot, anything from the list. What if you wanted to exclude a specific application? Yeah, go ahead. You can click it, you can browse, and of course exclude a specific application. I can just click browse. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. It's just for example. Okay, not I'm really not interested in excluding a SharePoint server, but just for example. Okay, here we go. I'm going to exclude patching SharePoint server 2016. All right, so I'm all set with my Microsoft applications. Now let me take a look at my third-party applications. Here we go. I've got it all set. Every severity is checked in. I don't have anything to exclude right here. And what are we supposed to do right now? I'm just going to, okay, I'm through with third-party applications. So what are we going to do right here? I've chosen the applications which needs to be patched. And here I have an option, something called as a delay deployment. So this option allows you to delay the deployment based on two criteria. Number one, based on the release date. Number two, based on the approval time. So if we're talking about vulnerabilities all these far, but why should we really think about delaying deployment? That should be a good question if someone has it probably raised in their thoughts. Delaying deployment is again one another significant need for every enterprise because updates are so frequent. What if one new patch which is released by Microsoft or a third party misbehaves in my network? What if that might affect my production service? Should it cause some kind of damage to my business? So in such cases, there are many enterprises who would like to roll out all your patches on a test-based deployment. You see how it works, you don't find any malfunctioning, then you go back and get them rolled out for your production. So in such cases, you can go down, choose delay in deployment option, specify a number of days from the release date or probably a specific number of days based on the approval. Okay, so we'll also explore it a bit in detail later. Now I'm scrolling down to something which is the most important part, deployment settings. So this deployment policy allows me to determine when and how should this patch be deployed. So this is where I define when am I going to deploy this patch to the target computer. I'm simply going to scroll down and I'm going to choose my target. So it is always recommended to choose your entire domain or your remote office as your target, which means assume one of your employee works from home. He's not a part of the organization, or he comes here once in 10 days. The machine is not available in your local network all the time. In such cases, when you choose your entire domain or your entire remote office as your target, anytime the computer joins or connects into your corporate network, the patching will be taken care of. You need not be worried about the computers which are not available during the patch deployment process. You can also configure the number of retry attempts in case if the patching doesn't succeed on the first place, since there are a lot of cases where users might be using several applications. As you might want to deploy Adobe Acrobat, I want to deploy a Java update, but Java and Adobe are quite frequently used. So in such cases the deployment might fail the first time. So in such cases you can go ahead and configure a reboot policy. There is also a better workaround that I would let you know in detail. And then let's scroll down to the notification settings, which means you can simply configure a notification policy when the task is completed, or you want to get it multiple times once in few hours. You can go ahead and configure it. End of which I'm going to click create. Oh, here I haven't left an email address. Probably once I throw up my email, everything is absolutely set. And once I click on create, the basic patch management challenge for my complete network is taken care of. Okay, so this is more than enough for you to patch all the computers periodically. Your machines will be scanned, patches will be downloaded, and patches will be deployed on the target machines. All right, isn't it interesting? Okay, now let me take you back to the product. Let's look into few more real-time use cases. Let's see how we're going to handle them too. We were discussing about automating everything, and now let's handpick few business cases. I said a few of my customers wrote me have to handle this particular situation, so I felt this could be the best opportunity for me to acknowledge their request. One topic that we discussed right now: test patches prior bulk deployment. Since we have a lot of updates which keep releasing every single day, deploying those patches immediately is again a point of concern. So in such situations, we would recommend you to create a test group environment. Of course, all the patches that are released from ManageEngine are tested by an exclusive team. They are verified, and only then they are pushed out, to your service. However, testing it in your own environment adds a lot of value. There could be a lot of in-house applications. When they are patched, the behavior might change. So how do we handle the situations? We have got a simple and efficient methodology to accomplish it. You can create a test group, automatically download the patches, deploy them on the test group, and once the deployment is succeeded, you can either choose to approve the patches manually or you can automate the approval process. So let me take you back to the product. Here we go. So this is the product console that we have seen. I'm going to click on approval settings. Right over here is my cursor, approval settings. Okay, so I've created a couple of test groups here. I can simply create a test group. All right, I'm going to do one for you, either for Windows or for Mac. I'm going to provide a specific name. I'm going to say patch test one as a test group name, and I'm going to choose the list of patches that needs to be tested. I'm going to choose them all. Okay, I'm going to choose a deployment policy. I have a default policy right now. Okay, so just go ahead and create. So once your test group is ready, okay, uh, all the patches which are newly released will be automatically downloaded and tested only on the test group. Based on the test result, the patches will be automatically approved, or you can choose to approve the patches manually. All right. So instead of adding computers manually, I actually chose a custom group which I have already, you know, which I already have in my network. I've just chosen one of the custom group, and I'm going to use the custom group for testing. Okay. Let's move on to the next business case. Okay, one slide at a time. Yes, here we go. Business applications are not compatible with the latest version of Java. So the first thing that we discussed about is about automating everything. Now the second question is we have to automate, but how do we slow down? Here is the third question, which actually comes into a different dimension. So here they say there are certain applications which should not be patched. My in-house application does not support Java with the latest version. So how do I ensure that the in-house application is not patched with the latest version? So here is an answer. We have a feature called decline patch. Using this feature, you can decline patching a specific version of Java, or probably Java on the whole for a specific application. You can also create custom groups, probably a dynamic or a static custom group, in case you wanted to ensure that your designers are not updated with a specific version. This is absolutely an example. So assume a Java version is going to hinder the designer's tool. You can simply create a dynamic custom group, add them, add few criteria to pull out all the designers, and just impose this policy. You can decline patches for a complete group. Okay, you got them. All right. Now let's move on to the next business case. We have we had enough on few cases where we were trying to deploy them all, test them, filter the deployment, but now deployment is a problem. When I often meet customers whom I have met, they often say users are a problem. They never allow me to deploy patches. They say it slows down their PC. They interrupt the patching process. So with all these in mind, we have a wonderful option here called deployment policy. I'm going to take you back to the product. Probably this screen capture is not going to help you more. So here we go. Let's take a better look at it from the product. Simply scrolling down. Okay. Deployment policy towards the left under settings. I repeat, my cursor is right over here under settings, deployment policies. So what does this policy do? I guess it can do a lot more than you can imagine. So I'm going to create a policy here, say test one, and I want to initiate this deployment during system startup. I hope some of you should remember I said you want to install Adobe or Java to few of the computers when it is used by users most of the time. My deployment fails. In such cases, you can create an exclusive policy where this deployment should begin during system startup, which means as soon as whenever a computer is being restarted, Java deployment is initiated even before the browser is open. The required patches are pushed alive. Okay, and the next option allows you to prefer the time for deployment. Preferred weeks, you want it to be deployed only during the second and the last week. Yes, you can go ahead and do that. Or you want to make it all day. Yes, you can put it open from Sunday to Saturday. And this deployment window is a wonderful option where you can ensure that the users during their business hours, they're not being interrupted. You can schedule your deployment window during non-business hours. Probably if they're going to leave the office by 6 p.m., you can schedule a deployment post 6 p.m., and you can actually end it up before they walk back to their desk. All right. So what if the user has turned off their computer by the time they leave the desk? No worries. You can simply enable this option, which allows you to turn on computers, which means you can boot a computer, deploy a patch. Isn't it interesting? Okay. So this allows you to turn computers on and then invoke your deployment. You can also configure the notification settings, which means you can notify users prior to deployment in case you're working, you are trying to manage a network which is closely associated with defense or probably with finance or with medicine. In such cases, you might have to throw up a message, even before you invoke certain operations based on certain compliances. So in such cases, you can enable this option, throw up a message, inform the user, get their permission, and of course go ahead and initiate the deployment. The final option here is about reboot policy, where you can choose to reboot. When I say choose to reboot, you can reboot a mission once the deployment is succeeded. Okay. In case you wanted to exclude servers from being rebooted automatically, you can well go ahead and configure it. You can also allow the user to determine the reboot policy. In case you want the user to prevent the computer from rebooting itself, yes, you can throw up a message and the user can skip reboot. At some point or other, you want to force enable it, you can well go ahead and customize it. So most of the real-time use cases, right from throwing up message, allowing users, to deploy the patches, or deploy, enforce reboot policy, everything is being taken care of in the deployment policy. So you can create various deployment policies and associate it with every automated patch deployment task that you create, which means, as I said, you gain granular control on the deployment process. So let's walk back to the presentation. We're discussing about customized deployment with granular control. This is exactly what the deployment policy helps you to accomplish. Okay. So here we come to the end of the presentation. We are almost done with 40 plus minutes. With all these offerings, you can automate the complete patch management process from ManageEngine. As I explained before, Desktop Central is a integrated desktop and mobile device management software. Uh, we also have offerings for service providers as Desktop Central MSP. And if you're not familiar, this is something that I would really, want to count it on. Patch Connect Plus, the one right over here, Patch Connect Plus is actually an offering which can leverage the Microsoft's SCCM. This Patch Connect Plus allows you to leverage Microsoft's SCCM to patch third-party applications. And in case you're looking up only for a patch management software, since Desktop Central has a lot more than patch management, in such occasions you can choose Patch Manager Plus, which is going to help you manage your Windows, Mac, Linux, and third-party applications. Fingers crossed, we have, and I'm just trying to disclose a secret for you. We have got Patch Manager Plus on cloud, which is almost ready, and we might have it released in one of our upcoming newsletters. So you're looking for a cloud-based patch management software. Here we go. You can just go ahead and check it across. So these are the offerings from ManageEngine related to patch management. Okay. So you got any questions? I'm not sure, if you are able to grab through the complete presentation, but anytime you have any questions or you got anything you'd like to quote about, you got some feedback from me, please feel free to post it. We'll be glad enough, to improvise our presentation based on your requirement. We are open for your comments. We really wanted to, see to it that these presentations are going to help you save a lot of your time on business, and of course, you can use it, better for your personal life, or you can optimize it towards your betterment. All right. So at the end of this presentation, once you leave this presentation, a survey As always, a survey would pop up. You can rate me on a scale of 1 to 5. If you're pleased, you can go with 5. If I really disappointed you, of course, you can let me know that too, so that I can, you can help me improve myself too. All right. So I appreciate every one of your time. Thank you very much for joining me today, and have a blessed week ahead. Thank you all. Good day to you. Bye bye.